The night was cold. Too cold for anyone to be outside. Marcus Tank Robinson pulled his motorcycle to the side of a dark Georgia road. His engine sputtered. He was out of gas. Miles from anywhere? At 52 years old, Tank had seen a lot of hard nights, but this one felt different. The air was too still, too quiet. Then he heard it, a cry, small, weak, coming from the ditch beside the road. Tank walked toward the sound. His heart pounded harder with every step. And there, wrapped in a torn blanket, lying in the wet grass like someone had thrown her away, was a baby girl. She couldn't have been more than a few days old. Her tiny fists punched the air. Her cries were getting weaker. Tank, a man who had spent 20 years in a motorcycle club, a man with scars on his knuckles and tattoos covering his arms, fell to his knees. He picked her up, held her against his chest. "I got you," he whispered. "I got you, baby girl." That night changed everything. Tank didn't know it then, but saving that little girl would set off a chain of events that would shake his entire world. It would bring him face to face with his past. It would cost him friendships. It would test everything he believed about family, loyalty, and love. And 18 years later, that same baby girl would save his life. Not with money, not with luck, with something far more powerful. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Tank wasn't always a biker. He grew up in Macon, Georgia, the youngest of 4 boys. His mama, Dorothy, worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. His daddy left when Tank was 6 years old. "Your daddy loved the road more than he loved us," his mama used to say. "Don't you ever be like him. But life has a funny way of pushing you toward the very thing you try to run from." By the time Tank was 19, he had dropped out of school, worked odd jobs, construction, warehouses, anything that paid. Then he met a man named Deacon. Deacon ran a motorcycle club called the Iron Brotherhood. They weren't a gang knot the way people think. They were a family. Black men who had been overlooked by the world. Men who found belonging on the open road. Tank joined. And for the next 2 decades, the Brotherhood was his life. He never married, never had kids. He told himself he didn't want that life. But the truth was simpler. He was scared. Scared he'd leave just like his daddy did. So Tank kept moving, kept riding, kept running from the one thing he wanted most. A family. Now, on that cold November night in 2005, Tank was 52 years old. He was riding home from a funeral. One of his brothers from the club had passed. Cancer. Tank had held the man's hand as he took his last breath. Death has a way of making you think about your own life. Tank was thinking about all the things he never did, all the chances he never took, all the love he never gave. And then he ran out of gas. And then he heard that cry. Some people call it coincidence. Tank called it something else. He called it fate. But just when he thought life was hard enough, things took a darker turn. Tank wrapped the baby inside his leather jacket. He walked 3 miles in the dark until he found a gas station. The woman behind the counter screamed when she saw him. A big black man, tattoos everywhere, holding a newborn baby. "Call 911, Tank said. "This baby needs help." The police came, then the ambulances, then the questions. "Where did you find her? Why were you out there? Is this your baby?" Tank told the truth, over and over again. But the officers looked at him like he was lying. "You expect us to believe you just found a baby on the side of the road?" one officer said. "I don't expect you to believe anything," Tank replied. But that's what happened. They took the baby to the hospital. They took Tank to the station. For 6 hours, they questioned him. They searched his record. They found old charges bar fights, a DUI from 15 years ago. Nothing violent, nothing serious, but enough to make them suspicious. Finally, a detective named Harris walked in. Harris was a black man, mid-40s. He sat down across from Tank and just looked at him for a long moment. "I believe you," Harris said. Tank exhaled. "Then why am I still here? Because believing you and proving it are 2 different things." Harris explained the situation. The baby had been abandoned. No ID, no note, no way to trace her mother. She was healthy, but underweight. She had been out in that cold for hours before Tank found her. If he hadn't stopped, Harris said, she would have died by morning. Tank felt something crack inside his chest. "What happens to her now?" he asked. "Foster care," State will take over. Tank knew what that meant. He had friends who grew up in the system, bounced from home to home, never belonging anywhere. And if someone wanted to take her in, Tank asked. Harris raised an eyebrow. You? Me? The detective leaned back. You're a single man, no kids. You ride with a motorcycle club. You think they're going to hand you a baby? I think that baby deserves better than being passed around like luggage. Harris studied him. Then he nodded slowly. It won't be easy, but I'll make some calls. It took 4 months. 4 months of paperwork, home inspections, interviews. The system fought him every step of the way. They said he was too old, too rough, too single. But Tank didn't give up. And in March of 2006, he officially became the foster father of the baby girl he found on the side of the road. He named her Grace, because that's what she is, he told his club brothers. Grace I didn't earn. Grace I don't deserve. But Grace I'm going to protect with my life. The brothers didn't understand at first. Tank was their road captain, the toughest man in the club. Now he was changing diapers. But when they saw the way he looked at that little girl, they understood. Love doesn't ask permission. It just arrives. But if you think that was heartbreaking, wait until you see what came next. Second major revelation 12001-800 words. The first few years were hard. Tank had never raised a child. He didn't know about feeding schedules or diaper rashes or why babies cry at 3 a.m. for no reason. But he learned. He read books. He asked his mama for advice, even took a parenting class at the community center, the only man in a room full of young mothers. They laughed at first. This big, tattooed biker learning how to burp a baby. But by the end of the class, they respected him. You're doing something most men won't even try, one woman told him. That little girl is lucky. Tank shook his head. No, I'm the lucky one. Grace grew fast. She was smart, curious. She asked questions about everything. Why is the sky blue? Where do stars go in the morning? Why do you have so many tattoos? Tank answered every question the best he could. Wasn't perfect. He made mistakes. But he showed up every single day. When Grace was 5, Tank officially adopted her. The foster system had tried to place her with other families' younger couples, people with more money, but Grace didn't want anyone else. I want my daddy, she said in the courtroom. I want Tank. The judge, an older black woman with silver hair, looked at Tank for a long time. Mr. Robinson, she said, I've seen a lot of cases in this courtroom. A lot of people who say they want to be parents, but wanting and doing are two different things. She paused. You didn't just want to be this child's father. You became her father. That's rare, and that's beautiful. She granted the adoption. Tank cried that day. For the first time in 30 years, Grace wrapped her little arms around his neck. Don't cry, Daddy. We're family now. We were always family, baby girl. Now it's just official. The years passed. Grace grew into a teenager, smart, strong, a little stubborn, just like her father. She asked about her birth mother sometimes. Tank always told her the truth. I don't know who she was, but I know she was struggling. And I know that leaving you was probably the hardest thing she ever did. Do you think she loved me? Tank took her hands. I think she loved you enough to give you a chance. And I love you enough to make sure that chance means something. Grace hugged him tight, but not everyone was supportive. Some people in the community whispered, a single man raising a girl? Something must be wrong. Some of Tank's old club brothers drifted away. They said he had gone soft, that he wasn't the same man anymore. He was better, but trouble was coming. When Grace was 16, Tank started getting sick. He ignored it at first. Headaches, fatigue. He was getting older, he figured it was normal. Then he collapsed at work. The doctors ran tests, scans, blood work. The diagnosis came back. Stage 3 kidney failure. Tank needed a transplant. Without one, he had maybe 2 years to live. The waiting list was long, too long. Finding a donor match wasn't easy. His brothers from the club offered. His mama now in her 80s offered. But none of them were matches. Tank sat in his hospital room, looking out the window. He had made peace with a lot of things in his life. But this, leaving Grace alone, it broke him. I can't go yet, he whispered to himself. She still needs me. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, something incredible happened. Grace was 18 now. She had graduated high school with honors. She had a scholarship to Spelman College. Her whole future was ahead of her. But when she heard about her father's diagnosis, everything stopped. "Test me," she told the doctors. "Grace, you're not even biologically related to him," I said. "Test me." They did. And against all odds, she was a match. The doctors couldn't explain it. The chances were almost impossible. Two people with no blood relation matching for a kidney transplant. It was like the universe had planned it all along. Grace didn't hesitate. "Schedule the surgery," she said. Tank refused. "No," he said from his hospital bed.
Absolutely not.
"You're about to start your life, Grace. You're going to college. You're going to do amazing things. I'm not letting you risk that for me." Grace sat on the edge of his bed. She took his hand, the same hand that had lifted her out of that cold ditch 18 years ago. "You want to know something?" she said quietly. Tank looked at her. "I used to wonder why I was abandoned. Why my birth mother left me on the side of the road like I was nothing. I used to cry about it. I used to feel like I wasn't worth keeping." Her voice trembled, but she kept going. "But then I realized something. I wasn't thrown away. I was placed. Right where you could find me. Right where I was supposed to be." Tears rolled down Tank's face. "You gave me everything, Daddy. You gave me a home. You gave me love. You gave me a name. You gave me grace." She squeezed his hand. "Now let me give something back." Tank couldn't speak. He just pulled her close and held her. The surgery happened 3 weeks later. It was risky. Both of them knew it. But Grace never wavered. When she woke up from the operation, the first thing she asked was, "Is my daddy okay?" He was. The transplant was successful. Tank's body accepted the kidney. Within months, he was stronger than he had been in years. The doctors called it a miracle. But Tank knew better. It wasn't a miracle. It was love. Love that started on a cold road in Georgia. Love that grew through diaper changes and bedtime stories and teenage arguments. Love that was tested and proven and made unbreakable. Grace didn't just save his life that day. She showed him what his life had been for. All those years of running. All those years of being afraid to love. It had led him to this moment. To this girl. To this family. And it was worth every single mile. So what does all this mean for us today? This story isn't just about Tank and Grace. It's about all of us. It's about the families we're born into and the families we choose. It's about the way life puts people in our path for reasons we coo and understand until much later. It's about second chances. Tank wasn't supposed to be a father. At least that's what the world told him. He was too old. Too rough. Too broken. But none of that mattered. What mattered was that he showed up. He stayed. He loved that little girl with everything he had. And in return, she loved him back. That's the thing about love. It doesn't care about your past. Doesn't care about your mistakes. Doesn't care about what you think you deserve. Love just asks one question. Are you willing? Tank was willing, and that made all the difference. There's another lesson here too. A lesson about how we see people. When Tank walked into that gas station with a baby in his arms, the woman behind the counter screamed. She saw a threat, a criminal, a danger. She didn't see a hero. How many heroes have we missed because we were too busy being afraid? How many good men have been treated like criminals just because of how they looked? Tank could have been broken by that, could have given up. Let the system take Grace, gone back to his old life. But he didn't. He fought, not with his fists, with his patience, with his persistence, with his love. And that's a different kind of strength, a harder kind, the kind that doesn't make the news, the kind that happens in courtrooms and classrooms and living rooms, the kind that changes the world one child at a time. We need more of that strength. We need more men like Tank. Men who aren't afraid to be soft, men who know that real power isn't about control, it's about care. We need to see each other differently. Not as threats, not as stereotypes, but as people. Complex, broken, beautiful. Just like Tank, just like Grace, just like all of us. Before we wrap up, there's one final truth you need to hear. 5 years after the surgery, Grace graduated from medical school. She became a pediatrician. She works at a hospital in Atlanta, now the same hospital where they first brought her as a baby. But that's not the final twist. Last year, Grace got a letter. It was from a woman named Denise. Denise was 40 years old. She lived in Alabama. She'd spent her whole life struggling with addiction, poverty, and mental illness. And she was Grace's birth mother. Denise had been 17 when she gave birth to Grace. She was homeless, terrified. She didn't know how to be a mother. She thought leaving Grace somewhere she would be found was better than watching her starve. "Not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about you," Denise wrote. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for a chance to say I'm sorry." Grace read that letter 100 times. She didn't know what to feel. Anger, sadness, relief. She talked to Tank about it. "What do you think I should do?" she asked. Tank was quiet for a long time. "I think," he said slowly, "that everyone deserves grace. That's what you taught me." Grace met Denise 2 months later. It wasn't easy. There were tears, hard questions, painful truths, but there was also healing. Denise wasn't a monster. She was a scared girl who made an impossible choice. She had carried that weight for 23 years. Grace didn't forget what happened. But she chose to forgive, not because Denise deserved it, because Grace did. Forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about setting yourself free. A healer, a forgiver, a bridge between broken pieces. And he knew finally completely that his life had meant something. All those years on the road, all those nights running from himself, they had led him to a cold ditch on a Georgia highway, to a baby who needed saving, to a daughter who saved him right back. Tank is 70 years old now. His hair is gray. His hands shake a little, but his heart is full. Every Sunday, he rides his motorcycle to church. Grace meets him there with her husband and her 2 children. Tank's grandchildren. A family he never thought he'd have. Life he never thought he deserved. But that's the thing about grace. It doesn't ask if you deserve it. It just arrives. Out. On a cold road, in the arms of a stranger, in the heart of a child who refuses to give up on you. If this story moved you, I need you to think about something. Think about the people in your life who showed up for you. The ones who stayed when they could have left. The ones who loved you when you weren't easy to love. Now think about who you could be that person for. Maybe it's a child who needs guidance. Maybe it's a stranger on the side of the road. We don't always get to choose the moments that define us, but we always get to choose how we respond. Tank chose love. Grace chose forgiveness. And together, they built something beautiful out of something broken. You can do the same. We all can. Because sometimes the hardest stories are the ones that heal us all.